we had talked about a living funeral on and off for years. When I was a boy, Tuesdays with Maury was published, and my mother and I read it together. So the example of a living funeral was already present for us, and there were other examples that came up along the way.
Hello, and welcome back to Sticky Hopebox Soapbox. I go by B as in your bestie in the Hope Department, and I'm so glad you're here. This episode and every episode, my goal is to bring you a little dose of hope through a story, a resource, a coping skill to think about, or sometimes all three, and of course, a sticky note of the week in approximately 20 minutes. Up on the soapbox today is Nicholas. He is an author, poet, podcast host, cat dad, peer specialist, great listener. He was a great pandemic dog park buddy, and he is a husband to the incredible Alyssa, who I got to hang out with and shoot photos with as a side hobby. Nicholas and I met, well, I'll let him tell you. In this first episode with Nicholas, we talk about, of course, his favorite color, his top coping skills, how caregiving became full circle in caring for his mom in her last days, grief, anticipation of death, baseball, mental health challenges. He tells us about his podcast, his poetry and writing, and the party that I haven't been able to stop talking about since I heard about it. This episode is full of heart, humor, and hope. Quick but important note. This podcast is for peer connection, not professional care, and it discusses topics that may be sensitive to listeners. Discretion is advised. This space welcomes varied experiences and opinions, but will always remain rooted in kindness. A gentle reminder that this podcast does not provide medical, legal, financial, nutritional, spiritual, or therapeutic advice. Always consult your trusted professionals for guidance. And if you or someone you love is in crisis, please call or text 988 or go to your nearest emergency room. Now, if you made it to the end of the last episode and were like, positive toxicity? Don't you mean toxic positivity? Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll switch up my words, and that one snuck by me, so sorry about that. I am so excited to introduce you to our episode 7 guest, Nicholas. Nicholas is a white man with short red hair and medium-length red beard, as he referred to himself, a diminished redhead. He is wearing a black button grandfather shirt and black headphones. This is recorded in May of 2025, and we are on a video call. He has a painting and a bookcase with books behind him. He is sitting down in a chair with his black and white cat, Bubba, joining him on his lap at times. Please meet the nurturing narrator, Nicholas. All right, let's get into it. Nicholas, what is your favorite color?
My favorite color has never been one color, because one color alone doesn't hold much meaning to me. But red and black together, that contrast has always meant a great deal to me from the time I was in elementary school. But then especially once I became older and started writing poetry and thinking about the Greek god Hephaestus, who was the god of the forge and of volcanoes and that great earthly power, that magma rising from the black crust of the earth. That to me is one of the most dynamic images in the world. So black and red, my whole life have been the colors of choice.
Well, that is incredibly powerful. Do you mind if I ask, wait, you said elementary school?
Yeah, I just remember there are so many art projects we have to do, cutting paper, construction paper, and there was something about the black paper and the red paper and wanting those to come together. Or even when I was at home, I played with Legos all the time. That was my favorite activity in my bedroom. And the black Legos would normally all assemble into these, dark spacecraft, and maybe some red lasers or lights would join them. My whole life, I've been putting black and red together. And of course, here I am, at least a diminished redhead, wearing a black garment. I carry it with me everywhere.
Thank you for that gorgeous answer. So right now, in this moment, what are your top coping skills for your everyday life?
I would say there's 3. One is go outside. Not take a long walk, not go do a whole big thing. Go outside, fresh air, cool off. We get wrapped up in whatever we're doing. We get hyper-focused here in the domestic life, the work life. Go outside, listen to the birds, smell the trees, get that heart rate down. Second thing would be music, loud, whether in the headphones, angsty, intense, whatever, just blast it, or put on a record, fill the house with beautiful sounds. Let the sounds wash away whatever angsty restlessness has come up. If you can. If your wife's on a work call upstairs, don't do that. That's rude. But, when opportunity allows. The third thing is being with my cat, because cats are all id, no ego. And when you satisfy that id with cuddles and food and sleep, they have everything they need in the world. They are more satisfied than you and I will ever be. And so to just pick up my cat, Bubba, and to just look at him and look at the serenity in his existence is so pacifying to me. And to have the privilege of taking care of him and providing his safe little life that he likes to complain about when it is not satisfied, but to then see him happy, very, very good feeling.
I appreciate you sharing that with us. You lost your mom recently. I'm so sorry. I know we've had conversations about her and about your journey before she died, and you're about to put out your 2nd season of a podcast you created called I Have No Process. I know the 1st season was primarily focused on her, and I'm wondering if you would tell us a little more about that journey, and how you've been doing since.
The moment that you and I decided to become friends, whether we knew it or not, is the moment that I learned that you had lost your mom. I hadn't lost my mom yet, but I saw something in you that was both so vulnerable and so strong. And that's what immediately attracted me to getting to know you better, to forge the friendship we have. I was always very close with my mother. I mean, from my boyhood, I would run home from school to watch Rescue 911 and then Oprah with her, get the weird chaotic boy energy out, and then, soothe it with that nice, feminine energy. And we remained very close all through my adulthood. Losing her was a shock. She died of pancreatic cancer and was gone within 3 months of us knowing that anything was truly wrong. And I did feel grief, learning that she would die, and then, of course, when she did. But I will say that she and I were so thoroughly close that there was nothing more that I needed from her to feel safe and secure in my own life. I learned how to be open and emotional and communicative from living with my mother, even just as a boy. So she wasn't a mystery to me, and there wasn't some unfinished business. I would have liked to have her see me publish a book someday. I desperately wanted her to be the grandmother to my children. But those were ultimately luxuries. That being said, I was her primary medical agent. I was her primary caretaker in the months leading to her death. The rest of the family was very supportive, but I led the charge. And so I needed a ritual to ground myself while I was out there taking care of her, because I didn't know how long she would live. It may have been 3 weeks, it may have been 3 years, but I was committed to spending every day with her that she had left. So I began to write a series of poems while I was taking care of her, equivalent to one a day for that time. And I did so around the ritual of watching baseball games, which I find very pacifying and very relaxing under normal circumstances. And so I thought that it would be a healthy way for me to ground myself and have a little time alone, as I said I need, while I was there with her constantly. Now, this had the horrific, ironic twist of actually stressing me out more than if I hadn't done it, because my mother was so courageous in the face of her own death. She was so graceful and calm and good to be around that actually taking care of her while she died was not difficult until the very end. She was a peach of a dying queen, and being with her was lovely. Meanwhile, I have been a lifelong fan of the San Diego Padres, and it was the most hyped up season of their entire existence because they'd just beaten the Dodgers the year before in the playoffs. So it was like, we finally have a team after years of suffering. They're going to go win it all. And I sat down to watch them on this magical journey. They were horrible at playing baseball all of a sudden. And so here I am taking time away from my gorgeous mother and hating every minute of it. So when all was said and done, I had this collection of poems that were somewhat strange because they were moving back and forth from either watching baseball with a very, squinty, unhappy eye, or taking care of my mother while she died. And this collection was both strange enough and large enough, and none of the poems made sense on their own. I decided to just self-publish the entire collection, and to do so via a podcast. So the first season of the podcast, which is called I Have No Process, is the story of my mother's death through the lens of this odd ritual that came along the way. Now we have another second season out, which has more poetry from my life in a broader swath. Not much of which involves Janet, I don't think, but of course she was our primary heroine in the story that came before. I will say that in this new collection of poetry, there are many poems from our time in Boston, from my time working as a peer mentor, or other kinds of mentors, tutors, etc. And so I'm looking forward to having those out as a kind of inner monologue role model of how to deal with certain things. So, for instance, the longest poem in the entire collection by far is a week-long journal of a nervous breakdown that I suffered while I was in Boston. And I started writing the poem while I was in the middle of the nervous breakdown because I knew I would figure it out. And I wanted to leave a roadmap for other people to see how the mind that is trained and experienced to endure those things without complaint, to get through it. So, amongst other things, that's some of what is available now.
Thank you so much for sharing about your mom, Janet, and how much she meant to you, and about the way you're honoring her, and also the way you're honoring yourself and your grief process as you continue to move forward. It's really beautiful to hear your perspective. Would you mind telling us a little bit about the I'm dying to see you party that she had? Because to me, it was one of the coolest things I have ever heard of.
Yes, Janet England is dying to see you was a phrase my brother coined. He deserves all the credit for that. But we had talked about a living funeral on and off for years. When I was a boy, Tuesdays with Maury was published, and my mother and I read it together. So the example of a living funeral was already present for us. And there were other examples that came up along the way. So when she was facing her diagnosis, was frankly terrified of chemotherapy, even more than she let on, and was ready to face her own death. She just wanted to see everyone she could before she died, rather than have them all gather after she was gone and she couldn't be there to enjoy them. So, though she lived in Vermont, a great concentration of her community was in San Diego. So we flew her to San Diego, had a week-long farewell tour of, dinners and parties with everyone we could. And then we hosted 100 people at her favorite restaurant. And we all gave her our eulogies. We gave her our speeches. Everyone hugged her. She was miserable because no one would let her eat her dinner or go to the bathroom. Everyone had to keep coming and hugging her and saying, I love you. But it was very meaningful for us. It was everything she wanted. And multiple people who were there said, I didn't know you could do it this way. This is what I want if I'm ever lucky enough to have a terminal illness, right? This is what I mean about we all have to die. And a terminal illness usually feels like a horrible fate, right? Wouldn't you rather die in your sleep? Wouldn't you rather not know or have something painless? But for those who do face that struggle, one of the benefits is the possibility of really having genuine communal catharsis in a forum like a living funeral. So it was great for our family and for our friends.
So beautiful. I love it so much. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we had a lot of technical issues with this recording. Luckily, we recorded a lot. Something that was missing was Nicholas's sticky note. So I'll read it to you now. Your pain is special to you, but it is not uniquely insurmountable. Do not pretend that you do not have the power to endure it. If this conversation resonated with you, please check out his podcast, I Have No Process. Season 2 is out now, and his book called No Voice is available on his Patreon at patreon.com/IHaveNoProcess. The thing I love so much about the Janet England is Dying to See You party is that everybody got to tell her how they felt about her while she was still here. And what I take from that is to tell people how you feel while they are still here. And along those same lines, if you're looking for even more poetry and a real and often quite funny documentary about anticipatory grief, caregiving, and cancer, check out the documentary Come See Me in the Good Light, featuring poets Andrea Gibson and Meg Falley on Apple TV. It's currently an Oscar nominee, and if y'all know me, you know I love documentaries. They're my favorite genre of film. Before college, poetry was my top coping tool, and I had the amazing opportunity to see Andrea in 2018 in my early 30s, after having just come out as queer. Andrea and their poetry changed my life as a newly out queer babe who struggled with so many of the things that they were writing about. They helped me start writing poetry again in this last year after I saw Come See Me in the Good Light in November with Tig Notaro moderating. I bawled my eyes out the entire time with both grief, absolute joy, and love. The full video about my experience will be coming out later this weekend. Until then, grab some extra tissues and check out Come See Me in the Good Light. In the next few episodes, our past guests will talk about how their communities lift each other, changes they would like to see, and what we can all learn from each other. The term eternal optimist was coined for me by a partner early on in my 20s, and I have held on to that for the most part. Part of that means that I'm optimistic for a kinder world, which means in order for our world to change, things have to really change. With change comes uncomfortable situations and breakdowns of systems that have been built on corruption, lies, and hate. Everything is quite heavy right now, I know, and during these times, I truly encourage you all to please take care of each other. Check in. Call your senators. Shop local. Fight in the ways that you can. A lot has happened since the last time I uploaded an episode, but my support system has been stronger than ever, and I couldn't be more grateful. Part of that is because I've been showing up for my community more and more. The people who see me, the people who are truly there. I don't know what the future brings, but I do know that we can't do this alone. Until next time, please take care of yourself and each other. You are loved, you are not alone, and I'm rooting for you.